Please tell me how you're out of order. You're out of order. How do they operate, trustees? How do they operate?
There were countless interactions just like this, elevated voices and heated debates about spending and the lack of a new budget.
Mayor Tiffany Henyard was a no-show for this special meeting called by village trustees, but she was still the target of scathing public comment.
I'm not going to stop until she's behind bars.
And at some point, she is going to have to answer to some of this stuff.
Tensions between Dolton trustees and the village's mayor are sky high, and things are just getting started. Everybody has been talking about the meeting Tiffany Henyard conducted without the trustees, and now we've got a meeting with the mayor absent and the trustees present. Needless to say, things are picking up pace. Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dolton, has been under intense scrutiny for quite some time, and the tension finally reached a boiling point during a recent meeting. Trustees accuse her of mismanaging village finances. Residents are outraged.
Continues between Dolton's embattled mayor and the board of trustees.
Trustees say the village is facing financial disaster and they blame the mayor for mismanagement. She says this is all just political retribution. WGN's Eric Rung live in Dolton for us this morning. Eric.
Well, good morning. The next big development in this story could come a little later this week. That is when former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is expected to release some of her findings in her investigation into the village's finances. For months, it's been anything but business as usual at Dolton's village meetings.
People around you that wants what's best for the people, not what's best for Tiffany.
People need, and watching as this village being ran into the ground.
The fight over the village's finances continues to be at the center of this tug-of-war between Dolton's mayor and several trustees. They accuse her of overspending and mismanaging the village's money, while she and her allies accuse them of playing political games.
This village is bleeding. If these residents knew the truth, they'd hit the roof. This is targeted. This is harassment.
Board members last night voted to limit the use of the village credit cards, lay off a handful of workers, including placing the deputy police chief, Lewis Lacey, on administrative leave.
The trustees' main concern revolves around the township's finances. Dolton's budget has been rapidly depleting, and many are pointing fingers at Henyard. Trustees have loudly accused her of unauthorized spending, claiming she's been manipulating the village's funds in what they call a shell game. This essentially means she's been moving money around in ways that don't make sense. And it's not just small amounts. She's been spending thousands without any approval.
New at 4:30, more money troubles in South suburban Dolton. New welcome banners recently went up in that village.
But the company that created them says it has not been paid.
When the trustees recently voted to cancel some of her upcoming events, she claimed the trustees were voting against her personally, not the events themselves, revealing a tendency to personalize every issue.
At one point in this 3-hour meeting, Supervisor Henyard demanded Finance Director Robert Hunt read through more than 100 line items that many trustees wanted to get rid of. For example, thousands of dollars to Amazon.
$169.99.
Thousands of dollars of cakes for community events.
102 Calumet Bakery.
And tens of thousands of dollars that were allegedly allocated for the one-day event, the Taste of Thornton Township.
We just had a couple events here in the past, month or so, that just extraordinary amount of money was spent unnecessarily.
As for upcoming events, the trustees voted to stop a few, including House Fest and Gospel Fest. Henyard accused the trustees of acting out of spite.
And right now, you guys are operating with hatred in your hearts. You're operating out of feelings. You're not operating with things that's going on, and I don't think that's fair to us. And I don't understand why it's a problem when we got a surplus in Thornton Township, thanks to Supervisor Tiffany Henyard once again.
Instead of taking responsibility, Henyard attempted to blame the trustees for the village's unpaid bills. Meanwhile, she continued to spend village funds on extravagant events that seemed more about boosting her own profile than benefiting Dolton.
We begin with another contentious meeting involving Tiffany Henyard.
Tonight, it involves her role as Thornton Township Supervisor. The Board of Trustees voting to cancel upcoming township events, despite Henyard's vote in favor of Gospel Fest, House Fest, Bingo, all failed to pass. The tech-savvy event failed at first, but trustees then approved it with a limited budget. Henyard telling the board their votes were not about the community, but about her.
because them residents love the events that we do here at Thornton Township. And prior to me, y'all have always had events. So I don't understand why it's a problem now that Tiffany Henyard is the supervisor when it wasn't a problem when Frank Zuccarelli was the supervisor.
Now, in her supervisory report, Henyard says she turned the township's financial situation around, claiming it had multi-million-dollar deficits in 2022 when she arrived. Now the township has a surplus totaling $9.7 million.
Unsurprisingly, tensions between Henyard and the trustees hit a peak. Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was brought in to investigate Henyard's alleged corrupt practices. Henyard tried to resist by blaming the trustees for the village's debt.
Stop creating chaos.
Dolton Mayor, in a particularly embarrassing move, she attempted to veto the FBI investigation into her actions. Her veto was swiftly overridden by a majority vote from the trustees to support her lavish lifestyle rather than serving the community via Henyard's police chief, Louis A. Lacey, who is embroiled in bankruptcy fraud charges. They argue he's too closely aligned with Henyard and needs to be removed. Lacey's lawyer claims the federal authorities are targeting him to get to Henyard. Lacey continued to show up for work, causing frustration and disbelief among the board members. His actions were seen as a blatant disregard for their authority, adding to the ongoing turmoil.
We were about $6 million in deficit.
But this morning, despite the vote, Lacey still reported to work after Norwood says the deputy chief claims the board had no authority to place him on leave.
That is not true. So we did a vote on it, and our vote is actually valid at the moment. So we were quite surprised when he showed up at work today. We're waiting for the advice of our attorney to figure out our necessary steps legally.
This is political retaliation.
Embattled Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard responded to that vote last night during yet another chaotic meeting amid multiple investigations, including a federal one into her spending of village funds.
They had to meet at the Park District for discussions, as Henyard's supporters allegedly locked them out of the village hall. Some trustees believe Henyard exhibits narcissistic tendencies. Bold claim, right? But considering her actions, they might be onto something. Henyard seems aware her corruption is catching up to her and is showing her true colours. The trustees are not wrong in their assessment. Henyard is clearly feeling the pressure. Henyard has been engaging in shouting matches with trustees during township meetings, accusing them of launching a smear campaign against her. You'd think with all the evidence against her, she'd cool down a bit, but she's only ramping up the drama.
Happening tonight, community concerns in Thornton Township and a push to regulate what some call out-of-control spending by Township Supervisor and Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard. NBC5's Lexi Suter has more on tonight's showdown between trustees and Henyard.
Good evening. There were many tense moments in tonight's meeting. At times, Supervisor Tiffany Henyard took on her fellow trustees when it came to money and expenses, even accusing some of them of spreading lies about her.
Please tell me how you're out of order. You're out of order. How do they operate, trustees? How do they operate?
There were countless interactions just like this, elevated voices and heated debates about spending and the lack of a new budget. Several of the trustees questioned much of the township's spending, while Henyard says she's cleaned its finances up.
Y'all thought that I was young, dumb, didn't know nothing, was going to let y'all come and manipulate me. I didn't do any of that. So because I didn't do any of that, you guys started this whole smear campaign.
This controversy has been brewing for a while, but things have heated up significantly. The relationship between the mayor and the trustees has been strained, but they managed to keep the power struggle somewhat under wraps until this recent meeting. Despite the trustees postponing a meeting,
My next appointment will be for village administrator.
Last night, Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard appointed a new top aide to a $100,000 a year job without board consent. 34-year-old Michael A. Smith, who's been active in South suburban politics for years.
The reason for Mike is he have a wealth of great information. He's a young person and ex-politician. He knows the laws like the back of his hand.
Dolton's newly appointed village administrator, Michael A. Smith, is also under scrutiny due to past allegations of sexual harassment and misconduct. Despite concerns from the trustees about his history and the legality of his hiring, Henyard defended her decision to appoint him.
Public reporting shows Smith has been charged at least 8 times with crimes ranging from domestic battery to official misconduct. In 2012, Smith, then a young trustee in Dixmoor, resigned after pleading guilty to theft when he allegedly stole gasoline by posing as a police officer. Then in 2018, Smith was working as an assistant dean at Thornton Fractional High School when he was fired for sexual harassment of a female student, grooming a student with lascivious intent, and inappropriate aggressive behavior towards a male student. According to his termination letter, Smith was accused of contacting a 15-year-old female student on Snapchat with inappropriate comments and making her his girlfriend.
That's new at 10 tonight. Dolton's embattled mayor addressing the public and taking new action involving village officials. Tonight's regularly scheduled Board of Trustees meeting was canceled because there weren't enough trustees present. But Mayor Tiffany Henyard still showed up and appointed a new village administrator and a new village attorney. Trustee Jason House telling us those appointments are not valid and the appointees will not be paid. Now, this comes on the same day that Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul's office issued a binding opinion saying that Dolton repeatedly violated the Open Meetings Act this summer. The AG is ordering Dolton to make all future meetings convenient and open to the public, and that includes ensuring there is enough space and not closing streets or putting up parking barricades.
In another example of mismanagement, Henyard tricked the trustees into passing a law fining residents $500 instead of $75 for unmown lawns. This highlights why the board took action against her. Such blatant disregard for the citizens is bound to cause outrage.
But with Tiffany Henyard, they raised those fines from $75 to $500 if you did not mow your lawn, and they were trying to bring in revenue for the village. But I went back in time and I looked at the actual board meeting where they voted. She tricked the trustees into voting yes for it without having anything in front of them. She had the lawyer get involved and acted and convinced the trustees. The trustees asked, and she pointed out quite just blankly said, it is just for the vacant homes. This has nothing, and she said word for word, this has nothing to do with the current residents, the people that live in Dolton. Has nothing to do with the people that live at 602 West 7th Street, okay, that occupy their home. This is for the vacant homes only. She convinced the trustees. They were hesitant, but this was back before all the major controversy, and so they decided to pass it because she said it would bring in revenue and that it was only for these vacant homes.
One of the main accusations against Henyard is her misuse of Dolton's finances. Reports suggest she's been spending thousands of taxpayer dollars on herself, including luxury trips, cars for herself, her mother and her boyfriend, legal troubles. Despite everything, Henyard has yet to practice any caution. Old habits die hard, especially if you're not interested in changing them. It seems more likely that Henyard's tenure as mayor may be nearing its end. Trustees, residents and investigators are closing in, and it's only a matter of time before the full extent of her actions comes to light. Stay tuned for more updates as this story unfolds. That's it for now. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below. For more updates, hit the bell icon.